ask you about her because I see her as someone, and she's not jaded. She's actually incredibly sensitive. So we spend a lot of time in her thoughts.
Yes.
We really do. You know, so we really get to know her.
Avis was so internal, and I think, who is going to get through this?
You know, well, you know, all the time that we spend in her thoughts is worth it because she is trying to access situations from different angles.
But I think she does bridge these big contradictions, and she is non-judgmental, and she is figuring out how to put very different pieces of lives together. And
here's the thing, one of the biggest contradictions I thought reading this is she's so perceptive and she's so sensitive to those around here, and yet, this is a tough one to bring up too, because I like her character so much, okay? This is a tough one. Yet, she comes to one of the biggest sort of conflicts, and not conflicts, but one of the toughest spots for her in the novel, that she suspects domestic abuse right under her nose. And she's so unsure of how to proceed, she's almost paralyzed. Now, granted, you really put her between a rock and a hard place, and which is what, you know, novels are all about, conflict. You put your characters in places where they just don't know how to get out. But, so, you know, you can understand why she is stuck, because the situation is so thorny and so complicated. I mean, who would know what to do in that situation? It's not a simple situation of just blowing the whistle. She has all these things working against her. But for someone with her life experience and her intuition, this inability to act seems to indicate maybe something else profound about her character. So almost that you were trying to hint that this sense of, she's almost let a sense of apathy creep up into her life, and she hasn't even realized it.
And maybe I haven't realized it.
It's funny, these characters take on a life
yeah,
of
they
their own.
do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think of them as real people. I didn't so much see apathy as she's reached a point in her life that's very discouraging to her, at least at the beginning of the novel, because she feels like she's spent 20 or 25 years trying really, really hard to do this thing she didn't know how to do. And she's been kind of proud of how she did it, but it's all coming apart on her. You know, her husband's leaving her, her son comes back from the war with some really troubling behavior. She looks back before he ever even went to war and says, well, should I have understood that that was worse than I thought? And all of a sudden, everything she's kind of fought for doesn't seem like much. And she lacks confidence. And I don't know how much of the story we want to give away or not, but the domestic violence, you know, the rock and the hard place is that she has one person that she really, really loves, and it's hard for her to be sure what to do. And she also, I think also a piece of Avis is that she is not someone who would have gotten herself into that situation. She watched her mother have some abusive boyfriends. She has listened to her friends talk about their husbands, and she herself is not someone, I mean, she might not be able to control her life, and she might not be able to make her husband still be in love with her, but it's unimaginable to me that Avis would ever be a woman who would stay in that kind of situation. And so she has a little mental place to understand both sides of it, if that makes sense.
Well, that's the nature of her character too, to be that way. And that's the irony, that she's the one person who knows, and the one person that could do something, and she's at a place in her life where she's stuck in so many things too, because the fact that her marriage is crumbling, that's not giving away much. You know, on page one, she's stuck there too. That sneaks up on her too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and I know it's you know, it sounds.
Were
like
you
I'm being hard on
unsatisfied?
her.
You wanted her to do more.
No, I understood why she didn't. I understood. Of course, you want her to do more,
right?
Because
Me
you
too,
know
right.
all the suffering that's going on because of her silence. But you know that's you get it. Of course, you get it. Now, who wouldn't want her to do more?
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
obviously, there's someone really suffering because of it. But anyway,
Yeah.
I wanted to run a theory by you here. Okay, it's about Avis too, and then we'll move on.
Okay,
Because we spent a lot of time on Avis, but she's really interesting.
Okay.
Really interesting. Yeah.
Thank you.
So she. This idea, and we can say this, I'm going to say something about the character of Las Vegas and the people who live here, and we can do this because we're from Las Vegas.
Okay.
So I wouldn't want
can
anyone
own
else.
our-
I wouldn't want anyone else to say this. It's like you can criticize your own hometown,
Yep.
but you
Okay.
don't want anyone else to do it because they don't know what the heck they're talking about, right?
Right.
So something about her and the way she reacted in the situation made me think of something that you tend to see here. Well, I tend to see this. Something about the character of some of the residents, and there's almost this lassitude sometimes you see in Las Vegas, and maybe you know what I'm talking about. Something to do with the ease with which things proceeded for so many years, and you mentioned this in your novel, something about the boom years, when jobs are easy to come by, low cost of living, even the weather, the sunshine, the lack of change, the fact that things aren't always challenging, that people sometimes they get very comfortable. They get almost lazy to the point where they
And
don't.
you can't get them to protest or care about things
That's
that
the
are
thing.
devastating.
There's
like
this
that.
sense of apathy that starts to transfer into other areas of their lives. So Avis almost might be exhibiting symptoms of that because she's a Vegas native and not being even consciously aware of it. So I wanted to ask you about that. Is apathy in her blood? Is it in all of our blood? Is it something we must constantly be wary of? I know it's a big question.
No, it's a big question. It's such an interesting one. Thank you. I mean, thank you for reading it that carefully. I didn't think of Avis particularly as apathetic. I want to think about that because I could be wrong. And it may be that apathy feels like such a huge word to me. I saw her more as it took a while for her to claim her own power and for her to recognize what she could and couldn't do.
Yeah, and she was stuck.
And I also think that she really didn't have the background and the experience and the knowledge to be sure when something was not okay, particularly in terms of her son, or was okay. So I don't think it's because she's my character. I think I give Avis a little pass on that. I don't give Las Vegas, myself, my community, our community, a pass on it. I think, I guess the bottom line for me is this is a place where people have been able to be really, really successful. And quite a lot of people have, for example, made a lot of money, amassed a certain amount of local power, and we haven't taken everybody up with us. And we haven't, why should our kids go to schools that are ranked 49th and 50th and 51st over and over and over again? And that's not just a money question, that's a bigger question. And my kids had good experiences in the schools, so I'm not totally wrapping them, but we're not Appalachia. We're a state where there was a lot of boom years and a lot of wonderful, fantastic success. So why don't we have that everywhere? And maybe, we have a lot of pockets of real success, but we have a lot of pockets of desperate unfairness and in every institution, whether it's the schools, whether it's education, whether it's medical care, whether it's public services like police, fire, the differences between what this community has and what this community has right here in Las Vegas are pretty appalling. I don't think they were necessary. I think we could have done better. I think we should do better.
We should do better.
I think we should.
Yeah, we absolutely should. That's well said.